The best piece of advice is probably don't be afraid to be alone. That's the best piece of business advice that I've had. And people would be like, what on earth has that got to do with business? And the reason why I say that is it's really hard to go out on a limb and just do something that you don't know anyone believes in. Hello, everyone. My name is Cory Malcolm. I am one of Nike Running's head coaches, founder of Trackmafia, writer, and consultant.
Cory, it's so great to have you on the show.
Thank you very much, Lauren. It's really nice for you to have me.
So we were just kind of laughing off air about like what is an expert, and kind of we distilled it down to being able to share like stuff that you're passionate about and your hobbies and get paid for it as well, and kind of having a laugh about that. So can you talk a little bit about kind of your background? Maybe just share with us like where you thought your career was going. Was this the job you imagined, or was there some other kind of profession or aspiration that you had in mind when you were younger?
What's really interesting about that question is I had no idea whatsoever where I was going to end up when I was younger. Like when I was younger, I didn't want to be a police officer. I just wanted to be a spy and go and break up really, really like serious crime. And that was through, I guess, watching Bond films and superhero films. I never had a plan. It was always just kind of see what happens. Even when I picked my GCSEs, it was the things that I was really, really interested in was performing arts, drama, music side of things. And even when I started to follow music for a little bit, I never actually envisaged myself being a musician full time. It was just, this is really, really interesting. I get to MC over garage, over drum and bass, over jungle, but I never in the future saw myself being so solid with like a record deal. So after the Millennium Dome, I went off to Westminster and I started doing this job as a city guardian. And a city guardian is like I guess the best way to describe it is like an old school Bobby, like an old school police officer, when police officers knew everyone's name in their neighborhood. So I did that for Westminster for a couple of years. I just used to walk around the street, just literally helping old people across the road. If I saw like substance misusers, I would then direct them towards the right people that they would speak to. And it wasn't until I stumbled upon a group of young people where I guess I found my calling, as it were. So I spoke to these young people because they were doing some antisocial stuff, as it were. And I just said to them, like, what are you lot doing? Why are you smashing stuff up? And they basically said that they didn't have anything to do. They wanted to play sport. They wanted to play football. So I said, okay, if I set up a football team, will you essentially stop smashing stuff up? And they were like, yeah. I don't know if they were telling the truth or not. But I wandered down the road to Westminster Sports Unit and I kind of walked in there and I was like, hi, my name's Cory. I'm a city guardian and I've stumbled upon a group of young people and they want to play football. I want to set up a football team. Can I have a football? And I basically reeled off all of these things that I wanted. And a gentleman strolled out. His name was Eugene Minogue. And he was like, love your passion, but no, you can't set up a football team. And the reason why you can't is because you haven't got the insurance, you haven't got your FA level 1, you haven't got your CRB, you haven't got your just loads of things, like barriers as to why I couldn't set this thing up. And he was like, but I'll pay for you to do all of these things if you run that for free. So I was like, oh, cool. All right, then. So I was doing my normal like 9-to-5 job, as it were, but it was like shift work. And I then went on my football level 1. I did my child protection, did a bunch of courses, and that was my entry into working with young people in sports.
I guess I'm really curious to know when it came to building your core project, and we'll get on to Trackmafia in a moment, but you know, did you sort of decide to build that community offline first, or was online a part of this world as well? And in terms of kind of getting visible and sharing your message and being a kind of spokesperson for all of this incredible value that running offers?
So it was weird because it was offline and online at the same time. You did all of these amazing things offline, and then you would then discuss all of it on Twitter. Like we just used to hammer Twitter, like we were talking about the other day. We used to talk constantly on Twitter, but now we have WhatsApp, so no one sees what we're talking about. Yeah, so there was already a pre-existing community from Run Them Crew, and there was another pre-existing like global community from something called Bridge the Gap. But how I built our community was from doing things a little bit differently, and that was, I guess, flipping track on its head. So all I did was I took people out on roads, but I treated the road like it was a track. So I would say, right, this block here, let's pretend this is a 400-meter track. We're just going to run around this at pace. The sunshine is out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring along water pistols. And the idea is you chase people with water pistols. I'm going to bring a parachute and we're going to chase people around the park wearing parachutes. When all of this is adding resistance, it's adding fitness. You're having fun, but you're working really, really hard. And it wasn't until kind of 2014, maybe a little bit after that, I was like, all of these people that I keep meeting in this new world, you guys haven't got real jobs. Like, of course they're real jobs, but because I had come from the public sector or the third sector, I was like, this is not a real, like, what are you doing? This is not, like, you're kind of wafting around. And now I have so much more respect for it, because when I first entered into that space, I was like, these just are really cool people wandering around in really cool clothes, not really up to much. But when you sit and talk with them, your mind is blown. And it wasn't until I met all of these people and just started having like loads and loads of different conversations, I realized that there was something else out there for me. So when I started, I guess, to build my own community, I didn't do it on purpose, if that makes sense. It was just, I'm voicing my opinion. This is what I've learned. I think it would be really cool if you came along and you learnt it too.
Is there one thing that you wish maybe you'd known when you first started out with your business journey?
What I wish I knew was that this existed. I wish I knew that this was possible, because then I might have been able to plan for it. But then on the flip side, if I'd planned for it, would I have ended up in the place that I was? Because many of the random things that have happened to me is because I've been in random places. Like a life-changing trip that we took to Taipei, it happened because I was sat in a bar with some friends that I'd met in Shanghai and Amsterdam, which is so random.
What's one thing that maybe you wish you'd done sooner in your business?
One thing that I wish we did sooner was learnt that we had a place in the space that we were sat in, as in, because I had no idea what we were or what we were doing. We were just a group of friends who were running. So had I realized earlier what it was that we were doing, I may have readied myself earlier. But from our business perspective, I actually think that we were successful because of timing. Like literally, had we done something a couple of months before or a couple of months after, things would have been really, really different. Like, for instance, when we completely rebranded Trackmafia with all of the stuff that Chop had created, Chop actually messaged me. He was like, when are we going to drop this? Let's drop this for the new year. We'll work on this over Christmas and we'll drop it at New Year. And I remember before we dropped it, he messaged me. He was like, you realize this is going to blow up, don't you? And I said to him, no, like, why? Why do you think it's going to blow up? He was like, you wait and see. He was like, all we're doing is changing your message. He was like, all we're doing is changing your messaging. And still, I had no idea what we was talking about. I was just having fun. So we changed our messaging and we turned up at track and there were 100 people there.
I love it. Tell me why you do what you do. What's your why?
I do what I do because I don't want to do what I did.
And what would you say is the best part about your job?
The best part of my job is the randomness of it. And that's what I've missed throughout COVID, but I've managed to find randomness. That's what I love the most about my job, being able to do what I want to do and making it fit where I want it to fit.
Finally, what would you say is the best piece of advice that you've ever received? I know this is a super hard question, but maybe you can pick one thing that's kind of stuck with you.
The best piece of advice is probably don't be afraid to be alone. That's the best piece of business advice that I've had. And people would be like, what on earth has that got to do with business? And the reason why I say that is it's really hard to go out on a limb and just do something that you don't know anyone believes in. Like, it's really, really hard to just go out and do something yourself without backing, without any evidence, and when I say without any evidence, of course you can go out and get evidence, but things like leaving your job or things like setting up a project, like you have to be in a place to be able to stand out there by yourself and be like, you can either clap or you can throw stuff at me. And like, you have to be all right with that. And that's what I've learned. It's like, don't be afraid to be alone, because it's tough out there to be alone. It's tough to jump and build your parachute or build your plane along the way. But what you'll find is that when you do jump, you'll see a bunch of other people that have no parachutes and no planes. And you can go and talk to them. As long as you can soar over to them. Soar
together.
Yeah, you can soar together, and you'll probably hit some rocks. But because you now have to build this plane, the plane might be broken. You might fly into places that you don't necessarily want to. But in those places that you've flown to, you'll find so much more of yourself. And yeah, don't be afraid to be alone.
So then tell me, like, how did you start to make money then? Because you talk about kind of leaving your job and being able to make money doing what you love. Did there become a membership? You know, were people then sort of starting to want to pay to come and be part of what you're doing? Tell us about that part.
So how I started making, or should I say how we started making money from Trackmafia, was actually the first stuff was events. Like we would make money selling t-shirts, or we would make money selling t-shirts. We would make money selling like little bits of merchandise. But when I guess it really became a business was when we started engaging with Nike. And how that worked was Charlie Dark, he already had a relationship with Nike. So I was kind of already on the peripheral of that ecosystem. The first time I had a shoot was with a guy called Bruno Garcia, and he was like head of digital, I believe, at Global Nike. And he just came to London to take pictures of shoes. So he just wanted to do a photo shoot on shoes. That was my first introduction to Global. Then a guy called Rory Fraser, who is a ex-English athlete who works for Nike, but he used to train at a really, really high level. He then came to our Trackmafia session and was blown away by, I guess, the level of professionalism that we had, the level of session that we were delivering, and the kind of individuals that we had participating in these sessions. What he saw people doing, he didn't expect to see at just a normal everyday club. So he kind of went back and told everyone at Nike, guys, this thing that these guys are doing over there, like you guys should have a look at it. And then there was another young lady called Ruth Hooper who gave me my first job as a Nike Run Club coach. And Rory doing that from a Trackmafia perspective, and Ruth coming to me and asking me to be Nike's UK head coach, that's when we started making money from Trackmafia.
Would you say that you started to take kind of intentional steps to attract certain types of people, or was it just about like you showing up as you and then naturally attracting a certain type of group? And how you describe like the shared values and like who that audience actually was?
So that was one of the big things. In the beginning, I didn't try and target a particular type of person. It was more so we have good energy, so we're going to attract people with good energy. But the more we did, the more we realized that if we're not careful, what we're going to do is we're going to lose sight of what we originally set out to do. And that was to have fun, engage with people, et cetera, et cetera. So how we did it was through our storytelling, through our marketing, through our pictures. It was always really dark, mysterious, ever so slightly edgy, slightly intimidating. Like that was the message. So it would, I guess, authentically attract a certain type of person. And that type of person is like someone who's a journey person, someone who is interested in doing things a little bit differently, someone who is, I get it, I guess, a bit of a disruptor, a bit of an innovator. It's not you don't want to be in the mainstream. It's more, we all have to tap into the mainstream to a certain extent, but it's more, once again, sitting outside on the peripherals. That was the kind of, that was the kind of person that we wanted to attract, just like-minded people, and not even necessarily just creatives. It was more a case of, I want to be surrounded by people who are interesting, who are doing good things, who are positive. And that could be anything from a pilot to a librarian to a dustman. Like, I don't really care what it is that you do. What I care about is that you are passionate about what you do and you want to share with other people what it is that you want to do.
Such brilliant advice. I mean, so much brilliant advice in that conversation, Cory. Thank you so much for making time. It's been a real gift to speak to you.
Thank you very much for having me. You were a great interviewer.
Thanks.
No, honestly, thank you.